Welcome dear audience, students and scholars. Here I am Dr. Amjad Ali. In this video we will learn a case study related to saving and investment in a small open economy, and for this we have an important question to discuss: why does not capital flow to poor countries? The main question that what countries were the source of these capital flow, because the world is a closed economy. The capital must have been coming from those countries that were running trade surplus. In 2008, this group included many nations that were far poorer than the United States, such as Russia, Malaysia, Venezuela, and China. In these nations, saving exceeded investment in domestic capital. These countries were sending funds abroad to countries like United States, where investment in domestic capital exceeds the saving. So for this purpose, for the detailed discussion of saving and investment in a small open economy, we are going to use the Cobb-Douglas production function. From one perspective, the direction of international capital flow is a paradox, and an empirical realistic production function is the Cobb-Douglas production function form. Okay, we have a function of capital and labor is equal to a k alpha L1 minus alpha, where k is the capital, L is the labor, and a is the variable representing the state of technological changes, and alpha is the parameter that determines the capital share of total income. Okay, for this production function, the marginal product of capital is equal to MPK is equal to alpha A into KL whole power alpha minus 1. Okay, the marginal product of capital tells us how much extra output an extra unit of capital would produce, because alpha is a capital share. It must be less than 1, so alpha minus 1 is less than 0. This means that an increase in K over L decreases MPK. In other words, holding other variable constant, the more capital a nation has, the less valuable an extra unit of capital is. Okay, this phenomenon of diminishing marginal product says that capital should be more valuable where capital is scarce, but in the real world, this prediction, however, seems at odds with the international flow of capital represented by the trade imbalances. Okay, capital does not seem to flow to those nations where it should be most valuable. Instead of capital-rich countries like the United States lending to capital-poor countries, it is often observed the opposite. We have here why is that happen to the developing countries case as well as the developed country case. There are two main reasons behind. The first reason is that there are important differences among nations other than their accumulation of capital. Poor nations have not only low levels of capital accumulation represented by K over L, but also inferior production capability represented by variable A. For example, compare to a rich nation, poor nations have less access to advanced technology, lower level of education or human capital, or less efficient economic policies, such as such differences could mean less output for given inputs of capital and labor. In the Cobb-Douglas production function, this is translated into lower value of parameter A. If so, then the capital need not be more valuable in poor nation, even though capital is scarce in case of developing or poor nation. A second reason capital might not flow to poor nations is that property rights are often not enforced. Corruption is much more prevalent. Revolutions, coups, and explorations of wealth are more common, and governments often default on their debts. So even if capital is more valuable in poor nations, foreigners may avoid investing their wealth there simply because they are afraid of losing it. Okay, moreover, local investors face similar incentive. Imagine that you live in a poor nation and are lucky enough to have some wealth to invest. You might well decide that putting it in a safe country like the United States is your best option, even if capital is less valuable there than in your home country. Okay, whichever of these two reasons is correct, the challenge for the poor nation is to find ways to revise or reverse the situation. If these nations offer the same production efficiency and legal production as the United States are given to the investors and to the firms, the direction of international capital flows would likely reverse. The United States trade deficit would become a trade surplus, and capital would flow to those emerging nations or the poor nations which actually need. So such a change would help the poor nations of the world to escape from the poverty, hunger, and some other economic and social problems. So this is all about the case studies related to the saving and investment in a small open economy. So see you with another video. Ciao.